Good morning, KU. My name is Zach Newkirk, and I'm your host for our first GMKU Sports episode of the semester. It's been a long break, but we couldn't be more excited to be back in the studio to talk some sports. Since our last episode, so much has happened here at KU and in the professional sports world. And this morning, we're going to get you up to date. We've got a packed show today featuring many different segments. We'll hear about college basketball, NIL, Champions League soccer, and much more. But first, I'm going to start us off with some breaking news. The 2025 Senior Bowl for college football is underway, and senior Jayhawks Logan Brown and Devin Neal have been showing out. And Neal specifically gained a lot of attention. He's supposedly spoken with the Denver Broncos and has been heavily praised on social media. Another exciting piece of news for KU fans, five-star recruits and KU commits Darren Peterson and Jalea Davis were just named McDonald's All-Americans. KU has brought in 52 All-American recruits, including current players Flory Badunga and Elmarco Jackson. Lastly, the NFL coaching carousel has been full of action, with notable recent hirings such as Ben Johnson taking the head coaching job in Chicago, Aaron Glenn taking the Jets' vacant head coaching role, and Brian Schottenheimer being promoted from offensive coordinator to head coach in Dallas. Schottenheimer, whose father famously coached the Kansas City Chiefs, actually played backup quarterback here at KU for one season. Well, that's all for breaking news. Now I'll send it over to Ulicia for an update on women's college basketball.
Thanks, Zach. While the rest of us have been enjoying our winter break, our women's basketball team has been putting in work during the regular season. Now, we're only 4-6 during conference play, but that shouldn't take away from the phenom that is Samaya Nichols. Earlier in January, Nichols was awarded first in the nation for free throws made. Along with the fact she's been averaging 20.8 points per game, it is no surprise she was named one of the top 10 scorers in the nation as well. Let's not forget about our other players, though. This past Saturday versus Houston, not only did our girls take home the W, beating the Cougars 57-43, our Jayhawks also had what you would call a double-double-double. Forward Reagan Williams took home her third career double-double against Houston, while guard Laya Canessa took home her first. Both girls had 11 points and 10 rebounds. But the winning doesn't stop there. Just this Wednesday, our girls took the dub against Texas Tech in a back-and-forth game fighting for the lead. This was an aggressive game, with a total of 50 fouls called across the board. Although both teams were low on scoring for most of the game, our girls pushed their way toward the end and secured a 57-50 win. Get excited, Jayhawks, because our girls will be having their first Sunflower Showdown against K-State this Sunday at 2 p.m. in Allen Fieldhouse. Coach Snyder is focused on the game, but also says he hopes to see more crimson and blue than purple, as this Sunday is National Girls and Women in Sports Day as well.
Thanks, Alicia. It's great to be back for another semester of Good Morning KU Sports. As the calendar turns to February, we are officially a month into conference play in the college basketball season, and believe it or not, we are not too far out from Selection Sunday. It's been a fun season thus far, but let's see where things stand at this point across all Power 4 conferences. Starting off with the Big 12, it's been a tight race through the first full month of conference play. Houston, coming off their improbable double overtime win against the Jayhawks last Saturday, sit at 9-0 in conference play and 17-3 overall. Even with the loss of first-team All-American Jamal Shedd, the Cougars have hardly skipped a beat and look every part of a national championship contender like they have the past few seasons. Arizona and Iowa State clashed in Tucson on Monday, and boy, was it a classic. Caleb Love had been 1 from 10 from beyond the arc before he hit a wild shot from well past half court to send the game to overtime. And he would take over from there, shooting a perfect 4 for 4 from 3 in the overtime period and carried the Wildcats to a massive home win, putting them solely in second place in the Big 12 standings at 8-1. Iowa State and Texas Tech round out the top 4, with KU right behind them at 6-3. It's no secret that the home loss to West Virginia and the late game collapse against Houston will likely cost this team a chance at a Big 12 regular season title, and it's something KU would desperately want back. Speaking of tight races, the SEC is absolutely loaded this season, with 3 teams in the top 5 and a whopping 10 in the AP Top 25. Number 1 Auburn has led the charge for a majority of the season, sitting at 7-0 in conference play and 19-1 overall, with their only loss coming to number 2 Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium in early December. The Tigers have been a juggernaut in 2025, with Wooden Award hopeful Janai Broom recently coming back from an ankle injury. Personally, I can't wait for the 2 matchups we get this season between Auburn and Alabama. Florida and Missouri have been surprises this season, as they are currently both tied for 3rd in the SEC standings, but Mizzou did recently beat the Gators in Gainesville a couple weeks back. Even though the SEC did not take home the national title in football this season for the 2nd year in a row, we'll see if one of their many top-notch squads cut down the net in San Antonio this April, and they will likely have double-digit teams in this year's March Madness field with a chance to make it happen. The Big Ten has been a pleasant surprise this season, with 5 teams in the AP Top 25 and plenty more to make in the mix to make the NCAA tournament. Michigan State has been one of the hottest teams in college basketball, as Sparty has won 13 straight games and it's a perfect 9-0 in conference play. A vintage Tom Izzo team that is elite defensively and has plenty of depth will certainly be a tough out when March rolls around. Purdue has finally seemed to get it rolling after a slow start to the season, as the Boilers have won 8 of their last 9 and are 8-2 in conference play after clubbing Michigan at Mackey Arena last Friday. Speaking of the Wolverines, the Dusty May era in Ann Arbor is off to a promising start, as he's guided the Maize and Blue to a 7-2 conference record and will all likelihood make the tournament in his first season at the helm. A handful of other teams in the Big Ten are in great position to make the field as well, such as Wisconsin, Illinois, Maryland, Oregon, and UCLA. Ohio State, Northwestern, and Indiana are 3 teams I have my eye on to see which side of the bubble they land on Selection Sunday. I was not expecting the Big Ten to be as strong as this year as in years past, but so far, that's not been the case. The ACC, however, has been pretty cut and dry. Duke has completely dominated the conference this far, with #1 overall potential pick Cooper Flagg leading the way. The Blue Devils sit at 10-0 and, in my opinion, only have really one tough game remaining when they go to Clemson on February 8th. Obviously, anything can happen, but I'm expecting Duke to win the ACC going away. Don't sleep on Clemson and Louisville, though, as both teams are 9-1 in league play and are well on their way to a tournament bid. It's been a very successful campaign for Pat Kelsey in his first season as the head man of Louisville. The bubble is certainly a hot topic in the ACC, with plenty of teams scrapping to earn bids such as Wake Forest, Pitt, SMU, and North Carolina. However, the Tar Heels have had surprisingly a very disappointing season. The projected 1 seeds right now are Auburn, Alabama, Duke, and Iowa State, but I would not be surprised to see teams like Florida, Houston, and Michigan State make their way into the conversation. It's been a tremendous season thus far, and I cannot wait to see what the next month of play has in store.
Thanks, Ryan. College basketball is one of the most exciting sports to follow, and conference play has not disappointed. Though KU's Big 12 title hopes may not look ideal right now, I'm hopeful that a fully healthy team can get hot and make a run.
National champions deserve a clean campus. Don't wait for other Jayhawks to pick up your mess. Keep the University of Kansas clean.
UCLA's Kiki Rice just recently displayed a new sneaker from Jordan's first basketball shoe designed for women. Rice has been a Jordan brand athlete since 2022. Now, the junior guard joins a family of female athletes such as Maya Moore and Kia Nurse in collaboration on the Jordan Air series, a shoe collection made to represent the current and growing evolution of women's basketball. Famous comedian Shane Gillis thinks NIL is changing the course of program championships. Gillis jokes in a video clip about how NIL fundraising might be the secret to success for football programs to earn top recruits moving forward. Let's take a look.
Great season. We'll be back for sure. We got to raise some money for the Irish now.
So that's where all the money's going.
That's where all the money's going. I'm going. My family, it's going straight to Notre Dame football. I was looking at the confetti, watching Ohio State score, just sitting there going. I called my agent immediately. I was like, let's book a show and give all the money to Notre Dame.
Obviously, Gillis was making an exaggerated joke. However, there is truth to his statement. This leads to the question, can the future of college championships be a result of NIL fundraising? Former Heisman winner Cam Newton also discussed the topic of NIL-influenced championships on his 4th and 1 podcast. Newton highlighted how NIL opens more opportunities for less dominant teams to offer for more top-ranked players instead of athletes choosing schools based on reputation. The program was what they were committing to. Nowadays, it's the money. That's all I have on recent NIL updates. I'll go ahead and pass it to Zach.
Thanks, Ulicia. It's been multiple months since the Dodgers were crowned World Series champs, and now we have just over 50 days until opening day. This offseason, there have been lots of notable signings and trades, so let's go over some of the biggest ones. The first big deal of the offseason came in late October, just after the season ended. The Atlanta Braves traded veteran outfielder Jorge Soler to the Angels for right-hander Griffin Canning. The Angels made some more moves early in picking up catcher Travis d'Arnaud as well as signing Kevin Newman and pitcher Kyle Hendricks. In a couple of mid-November moves, the Rays sent Jose Siri to the Mets, and the Royals exchanged Brady Singer for Reds infielder Jonathan India and outfielder Joey Weimer. To round out November, the reigning champion Dodgers made a huge signing with Blake Snell, agreeing on a 5-year, $182 million deal. Just as it seemed like the offseason was slowing down, things got even more exciting. As December started, Clay Holmes went from the Bronx to the Queens to become a starter for the Mets. Baltimore signed outfielder Tyler O'Neill to a 3-year deal, and shortstop Willy Adames agreed to a 7-year deal with San Francisco. Speaking of going from the Bronx to the Queens, in biggest move of the offseason, Juan Soto signed a 15-year, $765 million contract with the Mets, which is the largest contract in MLB history. This is Soto's 4th team, and it looks like he will be a Met for the rest of the foreseeable future. The Yankees quickly made up for it, however, with multiple big signings such as Cody Bellinger, pitcher Max Fried, first baseman Paul Goldschmidt, and closer Devin Williams. Other notable mid-December moves include the Red Sox signing pitchers Garrett Crochet and Walker Buehler, Jock Peterson signing with the Rangers, and Josh Naylor being traded to the Diamondbacks as the Guardians brought back Carlos Santana. To wrap up December, Andrew McCutchen re-signed with the Pirates, Gleyber Torres signed with the Tigers, and Corbin Burns headed to the D-backs. Finally, throughout January, teams have been making their final offseason moves, and there have been some big ones. Justin Verlander is heading to the NL West to the Giants. Highly sought-after pitching prospect Roki Sasaki announced he'll be joining the Dodgers. As though he has already drawn some health concerns, he will be a huge addition to their already stacked rotation. Lastly, the most recent moves have been Anthony Santander signing with the Blue Jays, Gavin Lux going to the Reds, and Jurickson Profar going to the Braves. Those are all the major MLB offseason moves you need to know about. Now over to Sam to give us a rundown on the UEFA Champions League.
Thank you, Zach. Let's talk the UEFA Champions League, which has undergone its fair share of changes over the years. About 3 years ago, though, UEFA announced it would introduce a new system with more teams, more matches, more excitement, and less predictability. That format arrived this season and has delivered on those promises. 36 clubs started this year's competition, stuffed into one skyscraping table, and on Wednesday night, this table phase reached its finale with 18 simultaneous kickoff times, all 36 clubs in action. Matchday mayhem, the name. Previously, the big teams could have had the group stage wrapped up in a few matches. The new format generates shifting up until the final whistle. This was the table before the final match day. Top 8 go through to the round of 16 directly. As you can see with the dividing black lines, 9 through 24 get caught in a playoff to get there. 25 through 36, not all pictured, but they get waved home. Liverpool and Barcelona at the top had already gone through, and all the teams in that oval were guaranteed at least a place in the knockout playoffs. Biggest watches on the elimination bubble were 25th place Man City, who needed to defeat Club Brugge in 20th to escape elimination. Stuttgart and PSG looking to push each other off the edge, and all the overtakes available to reach the top 8. And now looking into post-Wednesday night, the final table sees Liverpool top it despite a defeat to PSV. The top 5 remain unchanged. Atalanta and AC Milan failed to hold their own and dropped into the knockout playoffs out of the top 8 to be replaced by Lille, who jumped 5 places, and Aston Villa as well. Down further, that key win for Man City was captured at home despite conceding first, and their opponent Club Brugge snuck by just barely in 24th on goal difference. There was a mess of big shifts in the heart of the table, but note that Bayern and Madrid both climbed a few places into 11th and 12th, meaning one of them will now face Man City in the knockout playoffs, determined by a draw today. 2 potential meetings that have final written all over them play out before the round of 16. Let's review the best this enormous table offered us. The biggest shock has to be Man City finishing 22nd behind their fellow English clubs. Top performers, while Barcelona attackers Rafinha and Lewandowski pop off the stat sheet, scoring a combined 17 goals and propelling Barcelona into the last 16. Funniest moment goes to Liverpool's Amara Nala receiving a red card 4 minutes into a senior debut versus PSV on Wednesday, that final match day. My favorite remaining dark horse picks are 2 Italian clubs currently 2nd and 3rd in Serie A. Inter Milan, who conceded just 1 goal across the 8 matches, and last year's Europa League winners Atalanta, who finished 9th in the table. Time to move into the top 4 matches of those 144 table phase affairs, beginning with Bayern's record-setting 11-goal night with Dinamo Zagreb on match day 1, where Harry Kane netted 4 goals. In 3rd, Atletico Madrid's last-minute winner versus PSG to claim all the points on November 6th. Then match day 5, the worst of Man City's problems in the table, a draw to Dutch side Feyenoord 3-3 after squandering a 3-0 lead. And finally, the best game has to be Barcelona-Benfica last week. It was a 9-goal thriller capped off by Rafinha's box-to-box stoppage time winner to secure Barcelona's spot in the round of 16. This is what lies ahead, kind of a mess. There's a draw today, I mentioned, for the knockout playoffs, which determines who plays in those quadrants. 9 through 16 are seeded, 17 through 24 unseeded. The knockout playoffs are going to start Tuesday, February 11th. After that, there's a draw for the round of 16 to determine who those higher seeds, the top 8, will face from the knockout playoffs. From there, it's two-legged playoffs until the final in Munich on May 31st. Let's send it to Harrison for some news on college volleyball coach changes.
Thanks, Sam. Time to wrap up our first show back. Let's take a closer look into the impact that head coaches have when leaving their programs. Whether coaches leave for new opportunities, poor performance, or even retirement, it creates uncertainty for players, staff, and fans. When a coach leaves, it may heavily impact the new recruits or current players, as many players commit not only for the university, but the specific coach. If players decide to leave, it may put a new head coach in a position to rebuild. It also changes the entire dynamic of the team, as players will need to learn new systems and expectations. Take newly appointed KU volleyball head coach Matt Ulmer, for example. Ulmer previously spent 7 seasons at Oregon while leading the Ducks to 3 Elite 8 appearances. When Ulmer announced that he was leaving Oregon, the transfer portal's entries started to rack up. Fortunately, Ulmer brought with him his setter Christine Klein, who is on the Big Ten all-freshman team. With the departure of All-American Cameron Turner, KU was in desperate need of a seasoned veteran. Christine Klein racked up 1,139 assists and 48 total kills in 2024. Ulmer and Klein are huge additions to the team as they look to follow up an incredible 2023 season. In other news, Cornhuskers head coach John Cook announced that he has decided to retire after 25 seasons with Nebraska. This came as a surprise because Cook never gave any signs that he might be ready for retirement. This story originally broke with an announcement that Louisville's Danny Busham-Kelly will be taking over the head coaching position at Nebraska. Many fans and reporters speculated on social media that Kelly left Louisville players in the dark. They say that Cook only agreed to retire if Kelly took the job. This is a huge turn of events in the NCAA world, as these two teams both competed in the Final Four this past season and are two of the top teams in the country. With both teams gaining new coaches, players will have a 30-day window to decide if they want to stay or to transfer to a different school. That's all I have for you today. After the break, Olivia will be here. We'll give you the rundown on next week's weather.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning KU Sports. Now, we've had a lot of interesting weather happening over the break that we want to go ahead and break down. So, looking at all of this weather, first off, we had a massive snowstorm that came through at the beginning of January. Now, this dumped almost a foot of snow across much of Lawrence. Also, once we got closer to the time that school started up, the first day of the semester, we actually broke multiple daily records. We broke the high and low temperature that day. We reached about negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit in the morning and 20 in the afternoon. So it was very, very cold. I'm sure you all felt it while you were walking around campus. And we also now have started to experience a bit of a warming trend, and that's going to continue, and we're going to have warmer than normal temperatures expected over the next couple days as well. Looking ahead outside now, as we can see, currently it's pretty overcast. Temperature outside is currently 39 degrees and cloudy, and winds are out of the northwest at about 15 miles per hour. Now taking a look at satellite, as you can see, we had a bunch of rain happen overnight. This is slowly starting to push out of our area towards the east, and because of this, we're going to start to see a decrease in cloudiness over the rest of the day. Temperatures are going to start to increase as that cloudiness drops off. We're expecting a temperature of around 48 degrees for our high this afternoon. And the clouds are going to start to come back in overnight tonight. We're going to expect a low of around 28 degrees, partly cloudy skies. Now, winds are going to be calm, so because of the calmer winds and the colder temperatures near the surface, there is going to be a chance of freezing fog. Now, this shouldn't really impact anything in the morning because it's going to warm up relatively quickly. So looking at tomorrow, as you can see, we have a high of around 52 degrees. It's going to be partly cloudy skies, and it's going to be windy. So if you're walking around, be prepared for gusts of about 30 miles per hour, and the winds will be out of the south, so it won't be too cold as you're walking around. Now switching over to our basketball games this weekend, we have men's basketball playing down in Waco against Baylor. And this is a great day if you want to travel and drive down there. It's going to be beautiful. Temperatures are going to be in the upper 60s and sunny, so it's a great opportunity to go down if you want to head down to Texas for the day. Also, we have the Sunflower Showdown for our women's basketball team against K-State on Sunday. So we're expecting partly cloudy skies throughout the day and temperatures in the upper 50s. So make sure to come out and support the women that day against our rivals. And looking at the rest of our sports, there's only 2 sports that we're really concerned about weather-wise. Track and field today, there's about a 40% chance of showers, but for tomorrow, it's looking mostly clear. And we also have women's basketball against West Virginia on Wednesday. They could be experiencing some rain that evening as well. And going ahead and taking a look at our 7-day forecast, again, we're really expecting some warmer temperatures this weekend, but that's eventually going to drop back off to near normal temperatures on Tuesday and Wednesday. And we're also going to look and have our first chance of rain really start to develop back again later in the week, but it's too far out to really know how strong that's going to be. Zach?
Thanks, Olivia. Well, that's all for today's show. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to catch Playmakers at noon and KU men's and women's basketball this weekend. Have a great weekend, and as always, rock chalk. We'll see you next Friday.